Next, we have joining us. She is a graduate of Morehouse School of Medicine, completed her residency and fellowship training in Baltimore, Maryland. She specializes in surgical management of abnormal uterine bleeding, pelvis pain, and most benign gynecologic conditions. She cares for women from adolescence to postmenopause. Please welcome Dr. Sonoy Hawkins. Dr. Hawkins and Tanika, welcome to In Contact.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here. So I'll start with Dr. Hawkins. So heavy periods and abdominal pain are signs of fibroids. Can you talk to us about the difference of fibroids and heavy periods?
Absolutely. So just because a patient has heavy bleeding doesn't necessarily mean they have fibroids. However, just because they have fibroids doesn't mean they have heavy bleeding.
Okay.
There are many symptoms of fibroids. I tell my patients, don't ignore any time that you feel like something just is not right. It could be heavy bleeding, which is the #1 symptom that most patients will come in and complain about, but it could also be pain with or without bleeding. It could be bloating, distension. I just feel like my abdomen is a little larger. And some of these patients don't even have heavy bleeding, are completely oblivious and have no idea that they have fibroids.
Can fibroids lead to cancer?
So fibroids cannot lead to cancer. However, there is a type of cancer called a sarcoma that is closely related to fibroids because it's many times mistaken for just a benign fibroid. Fibroids by definition are benign tumors. Tumors nevertheless, so they'll grow over time. But for the most part, when we're talking about fibroids, we're talking about the benign condition.
So Tanika, can you tell me a little bit about the surgery that you experienced in reference to fibroids?
Yeah, so I had an abdominal myomectomy, removing 27 fibroids. And that means that the doctor did they call it the bikini cut. So straight across my abdomen, and went in and took the fibroids from my uterus. Yep, so it was a pretty invasive procedure.
Can you tell me a little bit about the recovery process?
So my recovery was very, very long. It took me probably about a good 6 weeks to start feeling like myself again, 6 to 9 weeks, I would say, to start feeling like myself again. Felt like I couldn't walk. I was in a lot of pain. So it's not something that I recommend, but oftentimes it is one of the procedures that is, the best option for women.
Did the fibroids come back?
Yes, unfortunately mine have come back. So I'm really back in the same position that I was in 2013 when I had the 27 taken out. I don't have as many, but they've grown back.
Dr. Hawkins, fibroids seem to grow or be prevalent 3 times more in African American women than other ethnicities. Can you talk to us a little bit about maybe the why?
Absolutely. So the thing that's beautiful about segments like this is that we're bringing awareness to fibroids. Right. And with the awareness, we'll bring more research because we really don't know the exact why. There are environmental factors. You'll hear that there's a lot of research about the things that we eat, that we consume. It's definitely hereditary. You'll hear a lot of patients say, well, my mom had fibroids, or my older sister has fibroids. It is passed down in the lineages. And then especially in our community, we're even doing research now about our hair products, our beauty products. We're doing research about the amount of vitamin D that we receive. Sunlight, us as African Americans, we have vitamin D deficiency, and they are finding a link with vitamin D deficiency to fibroids. So there's a lot of research that still needs to be done that why is not answered. Yeah. And so, shedding light on fibroids and just making everyone more aware of it is going to help us get answers to those questions.
And you perform surgeries all of the time. What are some preventative measures or things that we can do as African American women to really combat fibroids, if that's
Absolutely.
possible?
So I think that one of the most important things, health period, is being very, very health conscious in making our decisions, eating, exercise, making sure that we are aware of the changes that are going on in our bodies, getting diagnosed early. Because a lot of times patients will say, well, I had fibroids, I knew about them 10 years ago, they were small, they were not bothersome, I haven't paid attention to it since, and now they're bothering me. But fibroids, once you get that diagnosis, it is a diagnosis. It's something that should be followed over time, because your options will change and vary as they grow. They're tumors, they're gonna grow. So, you know, you'll hear some people say, well, if you eat this diet or if you do this nutritional cleanse, you'll get rid of fibroids. There's not one thing that can actually get rid of fibroids, but except getting rid of fibroids.
Right.
But I never disqualify a healthy diet. We know that red meats, beef, pork, processed foods, canned foods, those type of things are not necessarily healthy for us, and they can influence fibroid growth. There's good research to show that.
So Tanika, why do you feel like we don't hear about fibroid awareness as often as we should? And what are some areas of opportunity that we can raise awareness, being that July is Fibroid Awareness Month? Talk to us a little bit about that.
So that's a great question. I really think that we just have this stigma around talking about issues below the belt, especially for women. So culturally, you know, we're just taught to keep it classy, be a lady, be sophisticated. So when we're talking about issues that talk about period, pain, abdominal bloating, and you're not pregnant, those just aren't things that we feel comfortable about, and we're embarrassed by it. We have guilt about it. I remember when I was first starting this organization, I thought to myself, well, there's no way that I could share that I had 27 fibroids removed, because somehow I had associated the 27 fibroids with being my fault somehow. So I think that's the reason we don't talk about it, and we're taught to keep it moving and to just make things happen, keep your career going. So I definitely think that, you know, the stigma needs to be erased, the guilt needs to be erased. We need to stop feeling embarrassed. This is a part of, you know, what happens sometimes with our bodies. And I think, to your question, I think there's a real opportunity to share your story. So many times when we share our story, we understand how we get to a healing place. After I started this organization, I really realized how my story impacted so many women. And through that, I got my own healing. So I think it's so important, not only for our physical health, but our psychological health as well.
Absolutely. And can you expound a little bit more? You know, when you mentioned mental health, physical health, but also creating that awareness, and this platform is fantastic to have a subject matter expert as well as an advocate for fibroids to really bring awareness to the Atlanta metro area. Are there some other areas that we need to focus on, including awareness, education, anything like that you'd like to piggyback on?
Yeah, I'll just say really quickly before Dr. Hawkins that I really think it's important for us to notice what's happening with our periods. So obviously we have the expert here who can share, you know, what that standard is. But a lot of times, for example, when my mother had fibroids, and I still didn't feel like this could be happening to me. So when my periods were heavy and out of control, I was just like, oh, this is just how periods work. I'm a woman, this is what happens. And I think so many times there are women that are hemorrhaging, and we're thinking that is just a part of how it is, because that's what we've always heard. We've always heard that as a woman, you have your period and it can be painful and you can bleed. My mother taught me that you don't leave the house without pads, without leggings, without 2 pairs of pads on. So that idea of a tampon and all that, like I just never did that. And plus, I bled so much that it just wasn't something that I could do. So yeah, I really think we need to kind of figure out what is the standard. And Dr. Hawkins talks about, you know, if you're going through this amount of pads an hour, then that can, you know, raise a red flag.
What's a way that our audience can actually gain more information or reach out and visit you, Dr. Hawkins?
Yeah, so I try to make it easy. GetFibroidHelp.com. www.getfibroidhelp.com is going to bring you right to my landing page, and there's easy ways to contact me. You email me, I'm going to email you back.
Yes, she will.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Dr. Hawkins and Tanika, for joining me today at In Contact.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to Georgia Power, we cut our energy costs by 5,400 rolls of gauze.
By 570 new library books.
Over 7,000 eggs.
Spend less on energy and put more money back into your business. Visit georgiapower.com/commercial savings.